Hello, everyone. Welcome to this part of the Play On podcast, Hurling edition, in which we will talk about the Kilkenny versus Wexford game, which took place at the weekend. And what a game this was. This was an unbelievable match, huge entertainment, and probably one of the most dramatic finishes I have ever seen. Hawkeye getting called in. And for the first time that I think I've ever seen, the fans were hoping that it wouldn't be a score. And I've never seen anything like that before. Owen Murphy managed to save a point, which led to a Conor McDonald goal. But because of that, because of the fact that it had already gone over the bar, the point was given and the goal wasn't allowed. And it went to extra time and Kilkenny won the game. This is going to go down as a classic. What a game this was. Luke, what did you make of this one?
Look, yeah, I think going straight into that instance, that was the most remarkable passage of play I think I've ever seen. Liam Ryan went absolutely inspirational, kind of taking his defence. He worked his way out, ran kind of a huge distance out to the halfway line where he took that shot. And it looked like it was just about kind of going to reach. And it was kind of a really anxious period while the ball was up in the air to see if it was going to drop over or not. And everybody, it seemed to be like everybody was willing it over kind of. And then, yeah, like you said, then the ball's kind of batted back out, and then Conor McDonald knocks it in the net, and everybody goes from wanting to go over to wanting the goal to be given. So yeah, it was a really kind of anxious kind of thing with Hawkeye thrown into it as well. So look, yeah, it's really hard to know if it was over or not. Kind of, I suppose you have to trust Hawkeye that the trajectory of it was right. But yeah, it was fantastic entertainment, and I think that kind of summed up kind of what a roller coaster of a game it was. So yeah, it was really, really good entertainment, and yeah, probably one of the game of the year so far, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And some of the performances of the year as well to help make that game. TJ Reid popping up with 16 points, Lee Chin on the other side popping up with 14 points, Alan Cody with 1-5. Inspirational performances all over the field. Liam Ryan, as you mentioned, Paddy Deegan was massive for Kilkenny as well. Liam McGovern worked his socks off as well for Wexford. Those lads really stood up. The only thing that I will say is, we've always talked about how Wexford's first 15 kind of picks itself. And the moment that really stood out to me was, Davy clearly didn't back his bench as much as Brian Cody did. And I don't blame him for that. He put Sean Murphy back on, he put Dee O'Keefe back on, whereas Kilkenny, used their bench brilliantly. They scored 1-8 from their bench and that won them the game. To me, that's the difference between the two teams, even though, Wexford nearly nicked it. But the second it went into extra time, I think it was deep waters for Wexford.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's spot on. It's that was the thing. Sean Murphy and Dee O'Keefe, they clearly did not look right going back onto the pitch. They weren't even running freely or anything like that as well. Lee Chin was kept on until 5 minutes from the end, despite not even being able to walk for all of extra time. So look, it was summed up as well. Dee O'Keefe went off again. He was subbed back on for extra time and then had to go back off because he couldn't run. So it was it was a bit of an indictment kind of on the strength, on what Davy feels is the strength of the Wexford panel if he wasn't putting it on. And I was just kind of thinking that the likes of Damien Reck, Joe O'Connor and Harry Keogh were all unused subs on the bench, and it must be really, really disappointing for them, and it must be very frustrating for them to not be put on, considering the amount of game time they've got for Wexford in previous years. That Davy didn't think that he'd rather put fellas that clearly weren't kind of fit back on instead of them. So I don't know. I'd be curious what you think of this. But it must be very difficult for them to keep going on an inter-county panel where it appears that the manager doesn't have enough confidence in you to put you on in the last few minutes and extra time for extra legs when it's badly needed.
Yeah, I think it's definitely you could almost look at it as a disrespect as well. The players are clearly, of inter-county standard. They've been putting the work in for so long for Wexford, and it comes down to a crunch time. Any hurler there in that situation would be begging the manager, please put me on. I can change the game. I can help Wexford get over the line in this game. And instead he turns to someone who's been running their socks off for 50 plus minutes. Very confusing. And I do think that's what separated the teams. Kilkenny just had that little bit of an extra burst in extra time, and they put Wexford away. And one of their subs, Walter Walsh, unbelievable goal from this fella. Me and you had talked about him in the preview of the season, and we said Walter Walsh, is a needle mover for Kilkenny. This guy is a massive, massive player for them, and he's the type of player who can change the game by his presence. And his goal just showed everything about him: the catch, the run, and the finish, just superb. And it shows, the skill and the talent that Cody spotted in him way back when he selected him, out of nowhere for that final. And yeah, like, the guy just oozes class, and he really showed it there.
Yeah, like this looked like peak Walter Walsh. Like the way he was moving as well, the speed and everything like that. He just looked so fit and he looked so sharp and everything as well. And from a Dublin kind of fan perspective, going into the Leinster finals, the last thing you want to see is that a fully flying Walter Walsh who absolutely is going to be starting centre half forward the next day against Dublin. So yeah, look, I thought he was absolutely incredible. And the fact that if you compare the two teams at the start of extra time, Wexford put Sean Murphy and Dio O'Keefe back on, whereas Kilkenny put Killian Buckley onto the field, who hadn't even played a minute yet so far today. And I think that just kind of summed up the strength and depth, the difference between the two. And like, he made a huge impact in extra time as well. You look at other fellas coming off the bench like Conor Fogarty and James Berg and John Donnelly as well. Like, and these guys all adding to the scoreboard as well. So it was a huge impact from that bench. And look, Kilkenny didn't even have to put any fellas back on. I think Billy Ryan went back on for like the last 2 or 3 minutes, but he'd been taken off early as well. So like, it just summed up kind of, and that's why Kilkenny absolutely dominated extra time, even after Owen Murphy had been sin binned 1 minute into the extra time as well. So yeah, look, you can imagine what the scoreline would have been if Kilkenny had the 15 for the full 20 minutes of extra time.
Yeah, definitely. It was a wonderful game, and we expected that Wexford would give a bit of a kickback, but we didn't think. Well, I didn't think anyway that they would get as close to Kilkenny as they did. I thought Kilkenny would win by 5 to 10 points. Wexford, if this game was, a funny thing is that if this game was played 10 years ago, Wexford probably would have won, because Hawkeye wouldn't have come in and McDonald's goal would have stood, and then we would be talking about a Davy masterclass, if you like, and Wexford are into the Leinster final, and their whole year would look different.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think to give Davy his credit, I think he had Wexford absolutely like flying for this game, and they were well up for it. You can clearly see, like, from the earlier games in the league, that Wexford kind of weren't at the level that they probably needed to be because of clearly the amount of work that they were doing in training. It was obvious that Davy was running the legs off them, and they looked very, very sharp, and some of the performances were really, really good. We already talked about kind of like as well, like Lee Chin was really, really good. The frees weren't the issue that they were in the league again, and they kind of all these things resolved themselves kind of. So yeah, look, I think they'll be very disappointed that they didn't get over the line in the end, but there are positives to take. Like, you look kind of right throughout the team, kind of that there is strength in that team. Kind of, I thought Simon Donoghue had another really good game cornerback. Gavin Bailey looks good wing back as well. He's really, really settled into the team. And yeah, look, and Rory O'Connor seems to be flying this year too. So look, they're not in a bad spot as well going to the championship. And I think the Leinster Hurling Championship this year is in a really, really good place. So yeah, I think Wexford they'll be okay. I think they'll be happy enough with the performance anyway. Obviously disappointed with the result, and if they get a favourable draw in the first round of qualifiers, they could go a decent way still.
Yeah, definitely. I wouldn't write them off, making another fairy tale surge like they did in 2019. And now, of course, Kilkenny go into the Leinster final, and now they're playing against Dublin, who beat Galway, which we'll get to, one of the shocks, if not the shock of the weekend. And yeah, definitely, now Kilkenny will definitely have their sights on making it back-to-back Leinster titles. I think they are the favourites to do that, even as good as Dublin did look against Galway. I think Kilkenny, will lightning strike twice. I think Galway definitely had a bit of arrogance about them in the semi-final against Dublin, which we'll get to. I don't think Kilkenny really do arrogance. I think Brian Cody will keep them humble, keep their feet on the ground. And yeah, I think back-to-back Leinster titles is incoming for Kilkenny, much as it pains me to say it as a Dublin fan.
Yeah, I think so too. I think Kilkenny kind of had the edge in Dublin kind of since forever, really. And it's very rarely you see Dublin being able to overturn them. Kind of like, from a Dublin fan perspective, I really hope that this means Dublin have turned the corner, and that like maybe they can put in a similar performance to last year when they got within one to them, but the different outcome this year. But yeah, look. But as well, saying that though, Kilkenny will have some questions kind of going into it as well. They like Dara Corcoran didn't have the greatest championship debut ever. Was taken off at half time. Richie Lahey went at half time as well. So there's two kind of places in there that need to be filled. Does Conor Fogarty come back in? I assume Walter Walsh will come back into the forward line somewhere as well. But somebody's gonna have to slot into that wing back position that they seem to kind of have a hole at right half back. Like Connor Brown's kind of filling in at left half back as well. So that half back line's a little bit of a concern, I think, still. So they're not not every question's been answered for them so far.
Yeah, definitely. Like they're not the Kilkenny that they were, over the last 10 years. They're still a very, very good side. But, they aren't as imperious as they used to be. And I do think they're there to be got at, as Wexford have shown and as Dublin showed in last year's Leinster Championship, the way that they managed to claw them back from such a huge deficit to a 1 point deficit. And I do think that, when Dublin do get the run on Kilkenny, they do give them a good battle most of the time. And their tails will definitely be up now after, their semi-final victory. I think it's set up to be a very interesting Leinster final. I think it would be definitely a spectacle.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I just really hope from a Dublin perspective that they can really put it up to Kilkenny. And geez, it would be, with the year and all that's in it, I think that I think nobody would have predicted this for Leinster final a bit as well. The closer got the championship, these teams are kind of starting to be written off a little bit as well. So I think everybody's a little bit surprised that this is the Leinster final matchup. But it's a really mouth-watering kind of game. Just as well to mention as well, I think special mention has to go to Owen Cody after the weekend. I think he really kind of stepped up. But this was kind of his the game, I think, where he's put himself onto the spotlight, and I think from here he could turn into an absolute superstar and an unplayable forward, and that is exactly what Kilkenny need in a time when kind of TJ continues to get older. This was a real moment where Owen Cody, I thought, stepped up and showed like the level of talent that he has.
Yeah, definitely. We've always known how good this guy is, and we've been waiting a while now for him to fully showcase his abilities. He definitely did that at the weekend. I think another shout out has to go to the referee, Fergal Horgan. We bashed James Owens for his terrible decisions in the Clare Tipperary game. I think it's only fair that we, acknowledge how good Fergal Horgan was. He let the game flow, and that allowed it to be the epic that it was.
Yeah, and look, there's footage of the 90-second series of play that's going around all over the place on Twitter as well, that where it's everything that hurling should be, where it was kind of loose tackles and heavy hits and everything. Maybe some of it is illegal and stuff, but it's so exciting kind of, and it's just great defending and like battling for the ball and everything as well, and everything that the sport should be. And it was like, I just thought that the way Fergal Horgan refed it was that like there was no focus on the referee, and it was the players did all the talking here. So I thought it was that's exactly what you want. And any game where the referee, there's no talking points from the referee, he's done a fantastic job. And I think it is important that when this is the style of refereeing that we want to see. And for all the kind of the new rules and the kind of the way that the rule book has kind of gone and everything as well, to see a game where players are just left to hurl, I think that's exactly what we want to be seeing going forward for the rest of the championship.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, guys, so that is our review of the Wexford versus Kilkenny game. One for the books, absolute classic game of hurling, and it was a pleasure to watch it. Don't forget to listen to our reviews of the Dublin versus Galway game and Limerick versus Cork game.